It's 8 p.m. and here are our top stories in 90 seconds.
What does a pause mean? It really allows both the FDA and the CDC to further investigate these cases.
A nationwide pause on Johnson & Johnson vaccine distribution after 6 people suffered rare but severe blood clots.
You think about a 1 in a million event, that's, you cross the street every day, you have a much higher chance of getting run over by a car.
But still, state officials are heeding all warnings from medical professionals.
Out of abundance of caution, we're following the FDA and CDC guidelines to hold off a few days.
The Minnesota police officer who claims she mistakenly pulled her gun instead of a taser, killing a 20-year-old man, has resigned, along with the chief of police.
It was intentional they stopped him. It was intentional they used the most force. They could have gave him a ticket.
More fallout from a Greenwood Village newspaper's April Fool's article referencing Asian Americans.
And my first reaction was kind of like a gut punch.
Tonight, local Asian American advocates are calling for a boycott of the newspaper. Plus, a local dry cleaner owner hasn't been able to pay rent due to the pandemic.
It means my whole life. I watched my kids grow up here, and I met my husband here.
And she is now fighting to stay open until the very end.
To the final day that they chain it up, they're gonna have to pull me away because this is all I ever had, and it's my lifeblood.
But first, you are looking live right now at a growing protest in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, where 20-year-old Dante Wright was shot and killed by a police officer who says she mistook her gun for a taser. Now, for the third night in a row, we are seeing police and protesters clash despite a curfew in that area. Good Tuesday evening, and thank you for watching Denver7 News on Local 3. I'm Jessica Porter. Tonight, new developments in the case. That police officer who claims she mistook her gun for a taser has resigned from her position. So has the chief of police, who was the first to call the shooting an accident. This is happening just 10 miles from where the trial of former police officer Derek Chauvin is taking place. He is the former police officer on trial accused of murdering George Floyd last year. Tomorrow, we could expect charges to be filed against the female officer who killed Dante Wright. ABC's Andrea Fujii has the latest.
The police officer who claims she mistakenly pulled her gun instead of a taser on Dante Wright, killing him, has resigned. So has the chief of police. This comes a day after Brooklyn Center Police, a suburb of Minneapolis, released Officer Kim Potter's body camera video that shows her grabbing her gun instead of her taser. Authorities claim it was accidental. The fatal encounter happened Sunday afternoon when police say the 20-year-old was pulled over for an expired vehicle registration. After running Wright's name, they discovered a warrant for his arrest for a misdemeanor charge. Following the shooting, protesters took to the streets. Several businesses were damaged and some officers hurt. The unrest just 10 miles away from where the former Minneapolis police officer is on trial for the death of George Floyd.
Our community is enduring a trauma, and now a trauma on top of a trauma as we are also going through the Chauvin trial.
The Wright family angry and distraught.
Say his name!
Dante Wright!
They murdered my nephew!
Their attorneys saying this didn't have to happen.
It was intentional they stopped him. It was intentional they used the most force. They could have gave him a ticket. But when it's black people in America, they engage in the most use of force, and it ends up with deadly consequences.
Wright's mother spoke on Good Morning America.
I know my son was scared. He's afraid of the police. And I just seen and heard the fear in his voice, but I don't know why. And it should have never, ever escalated the way it did.
The state is now investigating the shooting. Dante's girlfriend was a passenger in the car at the time and suffered minor injuries after the car crashed. Andrea Fujii, ABC News, New York.
Andrea, thank you. Just 10 miles away in Minneapolis, the defense began presenting its cases in the trial of former police officer Derek Chauvin. A dozen law enforcement witnesses have already testified, saying Officer Chauvin used excessive force against George Floyd. Today, the defense called a former officer as a use of force expert who said Officer Chauvin's actions were justified.
I felt that Officer Chauvin's interactions with Mr. Floyd were following his training, following current practices in policing, and were objectively reasonable.
Why is it not a use of force?
Because it's a control technique. Without it doesn't hurt.
The jury today also hearing for the first time from an officer who responded to the scene. Officer Peter Chang showed up to assist and watched from across the street. He says officers felt threatened by the crowd and who, quote, became more loud and aggressive. Tomorrow, federal health officials are expected to hold a public meeting on the pause of Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccines. The CDC and FDA recommended the pause today after 6 women out of nearly 7 million doses already given out developed rare blood clots. All 6 women were between 18 and 48 years old. They got sick about 6 to 13 days after getting vaccinated. The clots formed in veins of the sinus and prevented blood from draining out of the brain. 1 woman died and another is in critical condition. There's no evidence showing the vaccine caused the condition, and to be super clear, your chances of getting struck by lightning are nearly twice as high, 1 in 500,000. The FDA is warning anyone who got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in the last 3 weeks to be on the lookout for severe headaches, shortness of breath, abdominal or leg pain. If you need treatment for a blood clot, they strongly suggest avoiding the blood thinner heparin, which they believe adds to the complications. Today, Governor Polis said the Johnson & Johnson pause is not going to affect Colorado's vaccination effort. He expressed complete confidence in the vaccine, which more than 120,000 Coloradans have already received. He believes this pause will only last a few days.
Nothing I know about Johnson & Johnson would deter me from getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine tomorrow. Out of abundance of caution, we're following the FDA and CDC guidelines to hold off a few days until we develop the protocols and measurements to make sure that we can restore full public confidence in all 3 life-saving vaccines.
We opened the discussion up in our 6 p.m. newscast to hear from Coloradans who have received the shot and their thoughts on this news. Robin sent us an email saying both she and her daughter received the shot. She says, quote, "We are both just fine, no worries, no problems at all. I would get it today if I had to. I'm not afraid. I trust science." But Rob in Wheat Ridge says this is enough to prevent him from getting it. He says, quote, "I wanted the J&J vaccine, one and done. No J&J, no way. I guess I will have to wait." Colorado businesses are hopeful that growing vaccination rates will help them reopen. But for some, they won't be able to see that day. Denver7's Addie Guajardo spoke with the owner of a local dry cleaners who is trying to stay open.
Sometimes you got to hit them with a little steam to make them move.
Jaredette Scavone is a pro. She owns the Naked Hanger dry cleaner in North Glen with her husband.
We work probably 18 hours a day.
They've been in business 25 years.
I watched my kids grow up here, and I met my husband here.
A family-run dry cleaner with a community-first approach.
These are from their last show, and it was The Wizard of Oz.
The total for a basket of laundry from the high school theater show?
Absolutely costs nothing.
They charge the same for people heading to their first interview or a funeral, despite their struggle during the pandemic.
People really just don't dress up anymore, especially since COVID. We're down still probably about 60%.
And time is running out.
Our property management company wants $40,000 now.
Money they don't have.
I don't want to be homeless at this point in time in my life.
It's why they're selling donated books.
I think that we could sell them for, $5, $6, maybe $10 on Amazon.
And turning to the community for help.
Bring your clothes in. We have a GoFundMe account.
The future looks cloudy, but Jaredette and her husband say they're not ready for their last fold.
Final day that they chain it up, they're going to have to pull me away because this is all I ever had, and it's my lifeblood. I worked day and night. Sometimes we would work 48 straight hours to fix a machine or to make sure that something was done right.
Addie Guajardo, Denver 7.
Now, the owner hopes to raise $40,000 to pay off what they owe in back rent. If you would like to help, head to thedenverchannel.com later tonight and we will have a link to the GoFundMe.
These advisories in effect for tonight, and we should see at least a little snow here in Denver.
A bill awaiting the governor's signature would change the way felony murders are prosecuted.
It's been a long time coming.
We look at the changes to jail time for accomplices who are at the scene of a crime.
That person could be a person who was merely the driver of a car who didn't even know that his partner, his associate, was going to go in and commit a murder.
Plus, coming up later, a huge blow to the Nuggets' chances of winning an NBA title.
Obviously, very down locker room. Yes, we lost the game, but I think everybody's thoughts are with Jamal